Hello everyone, and welcome to the Blueness Guide, the ideal nutrition guide for humankind. Today, we're going to focus on lipids, also known as fats or fat in English. They are macronutrients. They complement carbohydrates and proteins. Lipids are essential for metabolism and for cell membranes. They serve as an alternative energy fuel to carbohydrates, especially when the body enters ketosis. Like proteins, and unlike carbohydrates, some lipids are considered essential, meaning that the body cannot synthesize them on its own. Among the most important roles of lipids, they make up the structure of our cell membranes, and thus are crucial for their proper functioning. They play an essential role in transporting certain proteins and hormones in the blood, serve as carriers for fat-soluble vitamins, and are directly involved in the production of some of our essential hormones, such as sex hormones. Lipids are divided into several categories. First, there are trans fatty acids. These are partially hydrogenated oils, produced through industrial processes, and they may increase the risk of diabetes, certain cancers, depression, or cardiovascular diseases. As a precaution, this type of fatty acid should be avoided, or at least reduced to the strict minimum. There are natural sources of trans fatty acids. They are found in beef and mutton fats, in cow and goat dairy products at about 3.3%, and finally in beef and mutton meats at about 2%. But it's mainly the industrial sources of trans fatty acids that are problematic. The main industrial source of trans fatty acids does not come from natural sources. Partial catalytic hydrogenation of polyunsaturated fatty acids, aimed at making oils more solid and less sensitive to oxidation. This allows these fatty acids to act as preservatives, as deodorizers, and it makes foods firmer. You can find them in pastries, cakes, sweet or savory biscuits, industrial candies, in butter, cream, cheeses, yogurts, in the sandwich bread, margarines, dehydrated soups, ready-to-eat prepared meals, pizza dough or puff pastry, fried foods and grilled meats like nuggets, fries, hamburgers, and in the cooking of certain oils and fats. You should know that the trans fat content of foods is not listed in all nutritional tables because European regulations do not require it to be shown on food labels. As you've probably understood, all the foods we just mentioned, which are high in trans fats, should be avoided and, at most, reserved for truly exceptional occasions. Next, there are saturated fats. You can find them especially in the fat from meats, like ribeye steaks, chops, deli meats, in dairy products, in butter, and even in coconut oil. For a long time, saturated fats were considered bad. Even though they're making a comeback, as long as you consume them in moderation and, for example, choose coconut over dairy products or high-quality meat over processed deli meats. You can eat saturated fats at certain key times of the day, especially in the morning, according to the main principles of chrononutrition, a concept we'll come back to in a dedicated podcast. But you shouldn't overdo it, because it's suspected that excessive consumption of saturated fats, especially at the wrong time of day, is linked to a higher risk of coronary and cardiovascular diseases. However, there's no reason to cut them out completely. Next, we have monounsaturated fatty acids. They are found mostly in olive oil or macadamia oil, avocados, and nuts like almonds, hazelnuts, Brazil nuts, and pecans in the form of their. The main representative is oleic acid, which is a type of omega-9. These fats help provide energy and have a cholesterol-lowering effect. They therefore contribute to the prevention of atherosclerosis, which is a disease affecting large and medium-sized arteries. They also help prevent other cardiovascular complications, notably by increasing the good cholesterol, HDL, and by lowering, so to speak, the bad cholesterol, LDL. Finally, there are polyunsaturated fatty acids. These absolutely must be supplied by our diet because our bodies cannot synthesize them. They are made up of two families, omega-3s, which are found in small fatty fish like mackerel, in eggs from hens labeled blue blanc, or in dietary supplements. There are also omega-6s, which are found in sunflower oil, for example, or in grains, and which are recommended to be reduced in favor of omega-3s. We'll come back to this ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 a bit later. In any case, polyunsaturated fatty acids help lower blood levels of LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, and also help prevent the onset of cardiovascular diseases. This type of fat is also necessary for the development and functioning of the retina, the brain, and the nervous system. They help prevent high blood pressure while also having a beneficial effect on the quality of cell membranes, as well as on anti-inflammatory and immune responses. This could explain why the Inuit, whose traditional diet is especially rich in omega-3s from fish and marine mammals, have virtually no cardiovascular diseases. In terms of energy, unlike carbohydrates, lipids in general provide 9 kilocalories per 1 gram, compared to 4 kilocalories for carbohydrates or proteins. So, for the same amount, lipids provide much more energy than carbohydrates and proteins. So, what are the recommended amounts of fat? For an average adult with a total metabolism of about 2,500 kilocalories, ANSAS recommends consuming around 100 grams of lipids per day, which is 35% of the total daily intake. However, as with other macronutrients, lipid consumption depends on the type of diet chosen, each individual's preferences, and especially the goals being pursued, if there are any. So, in the context of a low-carb diet, fat intake should be increased at the expense of carbohydrates. On the other hand, in the case of bulking up for someone who practices bodybuilding, for example, it's carbohydrates that should be prioritized. Once you've determined your daily fat intake, you'll need to maintain, as much as possible, an optimal ratio between omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9. That will actually be the topic of an upcoming Blueness Guide podcast. See you very soon, and check out blueness.com for more information.